Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and I think about the end of the world a fair bit. Something that gives me massive anxiety is Doomsday Scenarios. And I don't know, there's something about it that just has me enamored. I don't know if it's like the analog horror nature of it or like just the creepypasta nature of it. But, the other week I actually saw that Russia's Doomsday Radio was playing Swan Lake, dumping things like cryptic codes, and a lot of people are wondering, whoa, is World War III on the menu? Now, ladies and gentlemen, in the famous words of Ivan Drago from like Rocky, if he dies, he dies. That's how I basically look at the world. You know, I'm one of those people where like I used to be a hypochondriac about the world ending, but now I'm just like, listen, if the bombs go off, okay, there's really nothing you can do about it. So you might as well live every day with positivity and you might as well bring joy into everyone's life because one day everything comes to an end. And listen, you might as well just enjoy life or try to enjoy as much of it as you can before it does. Now, ladies and gentlemen, obviously I saw that Russia's Doomsday Radio is apparently activated and transmitting encrypted codes. Now, a normal person would probably look at this and go, oh shit, that's scary. But if you're somebody like me that has an actual interest in this, these are number stations. You know, all the way back in the Cold War, we used to have these stations that were broadcasting secret messages that people could listen into. And a lot of these are actually meant just to relay commands to the rest of the world, especially to armies and stuff like that. To give you an idea, you can listen to a number station right here. So the actual number station that these guys were bringing up the Doomsday Radio is something known as UVB 76, also known as the buzzer. And we're going to be talking about how this thing gets hacked like pretty much all the time. But yeah, for anybody that wants to know what this stuff sounds like, here I actually have like a wideband web SDR kind of shortwave receiver that one can listen to. Now over here, the way you can listen to this is you can put in the numbers 4625 kilohertz and type in USB over here. Make sure you tap that. And of course, this is what it sounds like. So listen closely. Exciting shit, am I right? You hear that buzzing, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah, basically you'll be hearing a buzzing like you'll be hearing like 25 to 30 buzzes like every minute. And that's basically just you tuning into the buzzer radio station out there. In very rare cases, sometimes a pirate will actually infiltrate and communicate with the station. So one of the actual recordings, and this is a transcript of it, was when one pirate hacked in and was like, "Can I tell a joke?" Now, according to the operator at UVB76, one buzz is yes, two is no. So obviously you got two very clear buzzes for no joke. The guy was like, "Can I turn on some music?" And you got two clear buzzes for no. But why? Are you going to get in trouble if you answer my questions? And the buzzer just starts. So yeah, clearly it's meant for military stuff, not for memes. Now at times, the Russian military will use this radio station to relay commands, and from my understanding, they actually use it to relay commands to something like their nuclear submarine, so they can like reposition or get ready or do things like that. And by the way, for anybody freaking out, this has been happening since like the 70s, maybe actually even before that. And you know, surprisingly, every single country has their own doomsday radios. Whether it be the Chinese, whether it be the Americans, we're always broadcasting crazy shit over the airwaves. Now the thing is, can we actually decrypt this? Probably not. Like according to one of the Redditors, and I really do trust like a Redditor to know this information because it involves a severe amount of autism to understand it. It's messages encrypted by like a one-time pad, which is a pre-shared key. So basically these keys have been shared before and like unless you have access to them, there's no like use trying to decrypt this because it would just never make sense to you. So under perfect OPSEC, basically any Russian spy that's sitting around in the world right now, getting these orders from a doomsday radio, whether they be something as simple as pick up some milk for the for the submarine, Sergey, or I don't know, whack the fucking president or some shit like that, you'll never really know unless you have access to those keys and you're able to like decrypt the shit for yourself. And surprisingly, tons of countries have these radio stations. For instance, the Lincolnshire Poacher, which you can hear right over here. This is actually like for, again, the, I think, Royal Air Force. So when they need to relay commands to like British spies and shit, they've got their own radio stations for it.
0, 2, 5, 8, 8. 0, 2, 5,
I love how they follow that up with like a really cute musical tone and everything. Like you gotta imagine some British spy like perks up hearing that. And I don't know what those numbers could possibly mean. But yeah, really honestly the best way to probably understand it is like look at when they were broadcast and see like what crazy shit happens around there, right? Then you'll have a good idea of what that message probably was. But yeah, this is basically like the reality of like how this kind of stuff happens. So number stations being broadcast, again, just to like sort of relax you guys out. None of this is nuclear weapons ready to fire off, okay? If you're worried about that shit, ladies and gentlemen, right now there's some crazy ass shit going on in Iran, and, you know, it's got kind of, you know, most people on edge, I would say, watching it, but hopefully it's a situation of nothing ever happens. Now, what I mentioned earlier in regards to this being like used for nuclear codes and whatnot, a lot of this is unspeculated. Nobody actually knows what UVB is used for, unless, of course, you're the Russian military. But the most common understanding of it, one of the most common, you know, conspiracies or the common beliefs is that it actually has to do with what is known as the dead hand system. So this is from the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and they basically say that it's a system where if, let's say, the Soviet Union died, like imagine if you destroyed the country, right? You know, before nuclear Armageddon began, basically the system exists so that if the Soviets were to fall, no matter what, they would be able to send a signal to the nuclear submarines that would be available, and those nuclear submarines would then launch ICBMs against the enemy of Russia, or the enemy of the Soviet Union, which would obviously be the United States and pretty much any other country. Like nuclear Armageddon would happen regardless if the Soviets existed or not. Like just the nukes existing and them being positioned and these systems existing was enough. That's how scary some of the nuclear, like, mutually assured destruction stuff actually got. And it still honestly is kind of like that to an extent too. So of course, if you look at the old nuke map over here, I love this website. You know, it's a very morbid website to watch. You know, if you live in places like Los Angeles is a big sprawled out area, okay? You know, you got LA over here, you've got all the way down to Orange County, you've got San Bernardino, Irvine, Long Beach, go down, you'll probably see shit like fucking Oceanside, get down all the way to San Diego. But if you look at LA right over here, actual downtown is, you know, pretty sizable. But utilizing a current nuclear weapon, apparently the W-78, currently in the US's arsenal, I don't know if it's still the most active one, the W-78. This one, if used against us, or if used on us, will actually lead to some pretty terrible repercussions. For instance, if you look at this graph, to decode it, anything in this zone right here, so let's say that you're sitting in the jewelry district, let's say that you're in Skid Row here, you know, all the people in Skid Row, Gallery Row, Jewelry, Historic Core, they're basically vaporized, okay? The fireball radius basically means as soon as this thing blows up, you're subject to so much heat and death that you're gone. It is the quickest, most painless death here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're ever scared of a nuclear weapon, like if I was in LA right now and a nuke was hitting, I'd drive under the nuclear bomb, okay? Because that is the quickest way out. Do you really want to live in a post? It ain't going to be like Fallout, ladies and gentlemen. It ain't going to be fun. It's going to be fucked up. So, of course, you've got the moderate blast damage, which anything outside this area, it's still going to be pretty bad. Now, of course, the thermal radiation radius is also interesting. Remember, when a bomb goes off, right? One of the reasons why in Fallout, I think, they have like that Pip-Boy staring like this is that I think if your thumb is bigger than the mushroom cloud, you're safe. If it's smaller, that means you're in the radiation zone, but the thermal zone is even wilder, right? So when the bomb goes off, there's a heat wave that flies rapidly. So as soon as the bomb goes off, you're supposed to get into like a basement or like just hide somewhere or be out of that radius. Because if you're in the fireball radius or the thermal radius, you get cooked alive, okay? Now, anybody that's out in like Beverly Hills, WoHo, maybe up in the mountains over here, anything in this area, it's still going to be bad, but it's a lot less painful than what you're seeing in the center. Now, of course, this is just by one bomb. You might be like, well, that's just a part of LA. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we live in the age of MIRVs. So basically what a MIRV is like it's a missile that goes up into the air. Then it opens up into like 8 different MIRVs or 8 different missiles. And those 8 missiles hit everything. Now, if you go back to the nuke map, 8 missiles, yeah, they can cover a whole chunk of LA right here. Basically, if the country gets nuked, everything gets nuked, and then we're all pretty much done, okay? That's why I don't really have a doomer mentality. If it happens, Ivan Drago style, motherfucker, it happens. And it's also one of these reasons why, like, the whole world is scared to do this shit to each other, because listen, if the world ends, that means everything is fucking gone, okay? It's just done. Now, just for, goofy, just for shits and giggles, I always like to test what is the Tsar Bomba, which is like the largest bomb ever designed. This is one that's apparently not even tested, it's just designed. And just to see what it would do if like one of these bastards popped off, bro, it's all over at this point. It's just done. Like the insanity of this bomb, it's wild, right? Like it's crazy to see. It's just nuclear weapons, man. I'm telling you, it's the scariest thing that humanity has ever cooked up. And I'm pretty sure if you looked at like the alien Fermi paradox shit, this would be like the great filter, right? Like I think it's once a society develops nuclear weapons, it pretty much is on the verge of dying. But anyways, nuclear like stuff aside, obviously I want to look a little bit more into this like radio and just sort of start talking about all of the crazy shit around it. So about 2 weeks ago, Swan Lake started getting played, which apparently is like reference to when like the Soviet Union was like falling. But how does like a radio station from like Russia's military end up getting hacked? Well, it's not that it actually gets hacked. It's because there's actually a lot of pirates that are around and are actually just broadcasting and hijacking the radio. So for instance, a lot of the actual hackers around the world, or like anyone near these broadcast stations or the receivers, will typically blast audio at the exact same at the exact same range, at the exact same signal, which I just showed you how to access not too long ago. And when they do that, they can blast whatever audio they want, and then they actually broadcast audio files that have images hidden inside of them. So for instance, a bunch of people will probably stuff in a whole lot of like, Guy Fawkes masks and just like broadcast them on this range. So when you hear it, your spectrogram on your radio will like print out an actual Guy Fawkes mask. In some cases, on the frequency, you'll see stuff like the troll face, so that's there. Sometimes a pirate will just broadcast that. And the way that it works is they broadcast to the frequency and just flood out the actual official comms from Russia. So basically the rest of the world, when they're tuning in, they just see what the hacker is broadcasting, obviously illegally in that case. And never forget, sometimes you can even have a bunch of furry nonsense blown up too. So yeah, honestly, one of the big issues with this stuff too is like when you're like the Russians and you're trying to send out like coded signals, sometimes it's going to be annoying when your submarines are tuning in and all they see is a fucking giant furry. And one thing that's also really wild too is like, it's not just troll faces. Sometimes it's just like audio. So for instance, like a week ago on the Russian like Doomsday radio, this was playing. So like, we are Charlie Kirk. Just imagine you're like, just imagine you're in like a Russian submarine, you're tuning in and you're just like, Vadim, what is this Charlie Kirk song they're playing? So fucking goofy, dude. God damn. Now, obviously, for some of y'all watching, there's an entire, like, research group centered around all the radio stations in the world. Because, of course, it's the internet, they're all gonna do it. Now, for anybody that's interested, a lot of countries actually have, like, their numbers research stations, like, sort of brought out into the world. So if you're, like, Russian ground forces, for instance, you've got a whole bunch of, like, you've got, like, D-marker, you've got T-marker, you've got the air horn, you've got the goose, you've got the alarm, Zali 52, and then the southern military districts got like their own set of like, codes to like patch into. Now, sometimes you'll find stuff like the alarm, for instance, which sounds freaky, but the only actual recorded thing is like this one test, from my understanding, not an actual alarm. Now, if you're somebody that actually wants to kind of like stenographize your own like images, you can get programs like Coagula, for instance, and I've shown you how to do this before, but just to give you a quick idea, one can probably go and take images of like their face, for instance. Like for me, I can take the Muda derpy face right over here. I can render it into an actual, sound, which then if you play into any of these radios, if you have like a spectrogram, you can see my face show up as this video is being played. So pretty cool stuff. Would I recommend you do it? Absolutely not. Okay, because from my understanding, it is very fucking illegal, right? Especially if you're doing it to any like US station. So for instance, even when it comes to the Americans, there is similar communication systems, although these ones are a little bit more professional. So what the Americans have is something called like a high frequency global communication system, which is basically maintained by the Air Force. And they've got like 13 of these locations all over the world that again, they can use to relay messages. And of course, they've got you the frequencies right over here. And of course, these voice channels, as they say, carry two-way communications with aircraft using many different call signs. The main frequency is 11,175 during the day and 4724 during the night. So while these ones don't really have like Charlie Kirk bursting through the fucking, like they don't have like music bursting through, like the Russian ones sometimes have like Gangnam Style, so just imagine, how annoying it must be to be like a Russian military commander and like send out like coded messages, but like you have to deal with like somebody blasting like Gangnam Style. For instance, when it comes to the American system, this is what it kind of sounds like. So you got one guy, the hairy lemon, basically like submitting this shit for the rest of the world to hear. So for instance, this is what it sounds like, and you can just listen to some of these recordings here. So just listen to this one. So it's more close to like what you imagine a military radio station to kind of sound like. It's kind of a little hard to tell, but generally they repeat like this string, and whatever the string is, I don't know what it is, but I imagine whoever is supposed to be receiving this in the United States government has some understanding of what this is. Now, of course, there's other entire stations as well, too, from the United Kingdom, from Israel, from France, yada, yada, yada. Ultimately, the end, if I were you, ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't necessarily be freaking out about it. Because, again, this has been happening for decades, okay? All right, this is how these countries communicate, especially when it comes to, like, secret military-related shit. Again, you don't really have to worry about it unless the nukes actually fire off. And let me just give you guys something to relax. Maybe this will make you like freak out a little bit. So you might want to skip this section of the video, but we're already close to the end anyways. The thing about this is, ladies and gentlemen, when nukes go off, when wars start, especially like now in this nuclear age, it takes literally minutes, from my understanding, for any of this stuff to happen. So, a lot of these nukes will probably be on like submarines that are like a minute out from us anyways. These nukes travel so fast that honestly, the only thing you really can do is if you have a bunker, get inside that. If you don't have a bunker, get a fucking lawn chair, put it out into your lawn, sit down, relax, grab a good like book or something, maybe like read a couple pages and just see the fireworks, right? Because really, the best kind of way to describe it, actually, one game is like this game called Cold Line, which is where like a nuke flies from like Moscow all the way to New York, and you're supposed to be on like the hotline, and you have like literally 10 minutes to get it done. The whole point of the game is like you have to navigate through like shitty phone menus as the world is on the line. But the thing is, it kind of builds up a good example of like how little time matters, right? Like we have spent thousands of years building up human civilization, and literally in minutes, we can actually wipe out every bit of progress that we've had. It's crazy. It's like the ultimate Alt F4 that people have created, right? You want to talk about deleting System 32, delete all of human fucking history within a matter of minutes, right? It's crazy shit. That's why I don't really worry too much about it, because honestly, if it happens, it happens. What are you gonna do? One of the things that really gets me too, and this is like obviously like as we're ending, some of the thing that gives me, it still to this day gives me crazy anxiety is like the EAS Scenario stuff on YouTube. Now this is sort of like content on YouTube that's like, I want to say it's popular, but it's like kind of like silently popular in a way, because there's not really massive channels doing it, but it's kind of in the vein of analog horror. So EAS Scenarios, like this one got uploaded like a year ago with like over 500,000 views, but sometimes I put this shit onto my television so I can fall asleep. I know it's crazy, right? I just like hearing EAS tones, but this is like the scenarios, right? This is what like the world will like sound like on your TV when it goes off. So like, listen.
Not a drill. All residents of Los Angeles County are instructed to go directly to the health department at 277 South Atlantic Boulevard. Pickups will be every 15 minutes at the University of Southern California. Emergency evacuation in progress. Head immediately to your nearest emergency service shelter. Military troops will be there to meet you. Bring your photo ID and no more than one baggage item per person. Be aware of your surroundings.
I mean, nowadays it would probably just be like through the Amber Alert system on your phones. But, you know, sometimes, you know, when shit hits the fan, you'll see like the EAS system kick off, like the tones are firing off, and you'll get like your last messages from here. One of the most grim ones, I'll show it to you really quickly. One of my all-time favorites is actually this. It's like this nuclear Armageddon scenario between like the US and China. This is by like Harvester. This was uploaded like years ago. But one thing that really gets me is like when you get to like the Chinese discussion, so when the entire exchanges happen, this is what it sounds like from the Chinese. Now obviously this isn't real, but like it's super duper chilling. One of the most chilling things that I've heard. Listen to it.
府的广播，我们非常悲痛地报告政府解散。在对中国大陆进行多次核袭击后，该地区遭受了毁灭性的影响，可能导致650万人死亡。
This is where we part ways. The Hong Kong government wishes you well, and goodbye. I mean, that's the most chilling shit that you can read. The last message you get from one of the biggest nations in the world is, everything is fucked up, buddy. You better learn how to live life now because you're on your own. That is some chilling shit. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, if there's any message, the reason why like these videos are super duper cool to me is like, if you ever want to like relay to somebody like why we should all probably learn to get along and live in the world that we're at, because we really don't have another planet at the moment, and even if we did, it's still not good to blow each other up. It's probably stuff like this. We as human beings are more similar than we are different, and we should probably learn to get along. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you know, it's anxiety writing when you're seeing the world kind of like have all this shit surrounding around it. And of course, obviously, the news is not too good when it comes to like, you know, fear mongering, because that's basically the name of the game. And when I keep hearing stuff about the Russian, like, you know, Doomsday radios going off, and, you know, everyone kind of asking about it, people like, oh my God, what does this mean for the rest of the world? I kind of do have to remind people that for all the crazy shit that you hear, dude, those Doomsday radios have been firing off numbers forever. We're fine, you know, until we're not. And when we're not, honestly, you won't even have enough time to really make a proper decision. So live life, enjoy yourself, be kind to the people around you. And yeah, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe, just like if you dislike it, I'm out.